Because
Are
like,
you in a house?
Yeah, I'm in a house at the moment.
Are
Well,
you
like
renting
renting
or
a
owning?
house tends to be, well, the people I'm with own it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, like if you're renting a house tends to be cheaper than apartments. I've noticed this, especially in my area. I don't know how it is everywhere, but you can like some of the cheaper apartments around here are close to $1,000 a month, and the more expensive are well over. But like I've seen houses where you're paying like $600-700 a month to rent the whole house, and it's like a 3-bedroom,
Mm.
and it's like,
Yeah, the apartment I was in Tempe, I think even that was a little bit ridiculous. They kept raising the rent every year, and I don't even remember what it was by the time I moved out, but it was too expensive for what it was. Especially considering I was like in the hood.
yeah,
It was not a safe neighborhood. So I'm gonna be more careful when I move into my next apartment, or maybe I'll rent a house. That's not a bad idea.
I think when we were in Grand Prairie, which is like I want to say, yeah, it's on the other side of the lake, so it's one town over from where I am right now. I think we were renting like $850 a month for a 3-bedroom, and there was like 5 of us in there at the time because it was back when I was still in high school. It's probably more expensive now, but that was pretty cheap for the amount of space you were getting.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember my first apartment in Nashville. It was, I think we paid $600 a month, and it wasn't a studio. It was like a 1-bedroom, but it was pretty tiny. But
Oh yeah, they get expensive. I think it was $750 a month when me and my brother were in a basically we're splitting a 1-bedroom, and he had the bedroom. I was like, I don't need that much space. And so I just took the dining room. I put some white curtains up and stuff. Separate myself from everybody else. It's like this tiny little nook. I really efficiently used that space too. I think I had some pictures still up of it. It was like maybe a quarter the size of this room, but you couldn't even tell what it was like because I like Tetrised everything in there, and it was like this comfortable, cozy little lounge space with my computer and all that.
yeah. Well, I would like to have a place where I could do something behind me, so that I don't have to have this up here. In fact, I don't know if you watched the Drawn and Quartered last night. Did you see
I
that?
did not.
Drawn and Quartered Ultimate Edition. Not Eric, Zach DB. What is his name? You know what his real name is?
No, I don't.
The guy who goes by Zach DB on Twitter. He did this amazing picture. The theme was like ancient Greece or ancient Greek mythology. And he did this amazing picture of Artemis fighting these harpies with a bow and arrow. And it was beautiful. And I texted him afterwards and was like, "Hey, can I get a print of that? Can I buy a print of that? I'd love it. It's so beautiful." Of course, it had Booster in the background too, so
Yeah.
that sort of makes it whimsical. But other than that, it was just a beautiful, beautiful piece. But I'd love to actually have walls behind me with cool stuff like games and posters and things like that I could show off. But I don't feel comfortable redecorating this room that doesn't actually belong to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, we're live.
Welcome to the Vomitorium. As always, I am your host, The Metal, and joining me is my co-host, Marsupial Gamer. How you doing today?
Great. Joshua Hughes popped in and said Zach Bradley. That's his name.
Okay. Did not know that.
He did a
And even if I did,
beautiful piece.
I wasn't sure if he was comfortable with people knowing his full name or not.
Yeah, well, if it was anything other than Zach B. But he's an artist, and I'm sure he sells commissions and stuff like that.
I know a lot of artists who sell commissions that don't use their real name.
Yeah, well, yeah. Like I said, if it was anything other than what he basically has on Twitter.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not really sure. I know, especially in that community, right? In the general, I guess, comic skate community and stuff. Most of the people there have no problem using their real name, but especially the artist. You're just never too sure on the internet. And as you've heard many times, I reminisce about a time when everybody was anonymous.
Yeah, exactly. And hey, Rick Piper is also in the chat.
Yep. So I got some stuff to talk about today. Let me pull something up.
I got my Realms and Relics shirt.
Yeah.
From Metal's store.
I have been uploading page by page, like day after day, up to Newgrounds as well, because I realized, oh hey, I never uploaded this stuff to Newgrounds. So they've been getting that. That's the manga I wrote last summer, which a lot of people have been complaining too, more than X Dynamis Chaos, like, hey, when are you going to continue that manga? Partially because people tend to like my black and white art more than my colored art, which I don't blame them. I'm not that great of a digital colorist, nor do I put that much effort into the webcomic, because when I do make a page of it, it needs to be quick, right? That's the whole point of doing something in webcomic form. I haven't touched anything in a while, but I don't know, because even finishing the chapter of the webcomic I'm on takes priority over the manga, and actually doing those 2 shorts I owe people take priority over that, and I probably won't have time to actually do that with how much these assets take me to make, along with the other things I have to do in the day, until we take our break. Or maybe I'll be able to get something done this week, because there's a really good chance that you guys are going to be in the Forgotten Manor for like 3 to 5 sessions.
Yeah.
So I'll probably have time to work on stuff.
Yeah. You know, I was wondering actually, whatever happened to the D&D campaign? Are we going to go back to that?
That was something we were supposed to do just when everybody's had time late at night or whatever one day, or and we just have never talked about it since then. We could. It might even be something that we do during the break, because I don't have to make assets for it at all. The campaign runs itself, basically.
Yeah. I think I ran across, I was looking around for some pictures of something, and I ran across one of the pictures that I used, I guess, for my character in that, and I was like, oh yeah, totally forgot about that. So. I
mean, we pretty much only did cool. a session 0 anyway. It was mostly character creation and introduction to the world.
Right. Yeah, we haven't done actually anything other than, well, we did some role-playing in the town.
Yeah.
You'll have to remind us all, if we ever get back to it, you'll have to remind us all what quests we accepted.
Yes, I will.
What the hell
if we plan on doing it, because it's been a while, and we should probably pick a day to set up or something, or we'll just end up doing it on Sundays during the break. I'll probably just watch the session again from the point in which the game actually started. I think we only played for 45 minutes after the characters were made. Most of that session was creating characters. I'll just watch it as a refresher.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to talk about the Switch in a second. But real quick, what I found funny is, like I told you, I was filling out the survey for Square. And question number 4 of the survey said, what new or upcoming video games for PC, console, or Switch do you have on your radar that are interested in purchasing when it comes out? And I found that so funny, because it said PC, console, or Switch. And I'm like, Square, do you not think that the Switch is a console? Do you think it's just its own like ambiguous thing floating out there in space?
It is. It's almost like its own category.
Yeah. But it is definitely a console. It's just a console that you can take anywhere. I mean, they use the term handheld a lot, but at this point too, handheld is getting very, very split between 2 different things, and they always refer to them as handheld consoles. Handheld was just a shorthand for referring to the ones that you took with you. But now, instead of handheld, everything is mobile. So if you had a handheld console, I don't even think you would refer to that anymore.
Yeah. You just call it mobile?
Yeah, we've got mobile, and then we've got the Switch as a console. It's just a console that you could take places.
I guess a lot of people just, when they see your console, they think PlayStation and Xbox, and that's it. And then it's like, and then there's the Switch. Just completely different.
It's probably the last portable game system left, or the first of its kind, because everybody seems to have something like that on their radar. It may not be their primary console, but a lot of people are looking into doing something like the Switch because how popular it is. And we even know that, what was it? It was Steam? It was either Steam or it was Razer, one of those two. We were talking about it like a few weeks ago. We're looking into making a Switch-like console.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them.
Yeah, I remember we did talk about that at some point. I was looking up a story that I ran across earlier for later.
Yeah. Well, the story I was talking about, why I brought up the Switch too, is Doug Bowser came out. And he said that the Switch is redefining what a console lifecycle can look like. Basically saying that we'll announce new hardware when we're good and ready, when it's the appropriate time.
Yeah. Buzz off, everyone.
Yeah. And that the Switch is not just going in 6 to 7 years like your average console is. Because they really don't need to update. Like, sure, it's less powerful than the other systems. There is new technology that you could put into it. But Nintendo itself is so good at optimizing games for their systems that everything just runs so good on the Switch as it is. It's the problem with third party, but even most of the third party, I've had some games crash on me here and there, but not very often.
Yeah.
Like, even less often than companies making games for the other competing consoles have crashed on me.
Well, you know, it's so successful. I wouldn't put it past Nintendo to just be like, okay, we're gonna just refresh it every few years.
Yeah.
You know, like come out with a Switch Pro, and then a Switch Pro Plus, and then you switch to a new Switch Pro Plus, and a, you know.
Yeah. But even
why
the way he's been talking about it too, right? Because we never got our Switch Pro announcement, which I was fairly certain we weren't getting one, but everybody else was like, "Oh, there's gonna be one. There's gonna be one." If there is one, they're probably holding it off for the Tokyo Game Show, but I'm not thinking what's coming on the horizon.
When is that?
If they do update the console like that, Tokyo Game Show is usually in like the late fall.
Okay.
Let me actually look where it is this year. That's actually the big thing for Nintendo. They have been doing directs for years instead of going to E3, but they've still been going to the Tokyo Game Show. Mid-fall this year. Okay, it's September 30th to October 3rd. Yeah.
Interesting.
But Nintendo still usually goes to the Tokyo Game Show, which I think is going to be running in full because Japan is open.
Yeah.
They've been open for a while. Like, people have been doing local Smash tournaments in Japan for, like, months now. I've been watching a lot of them. It's great. Because Smash Offline is just so much more competitive than it is online. Any fighting game is like that. But Nintendo will probably be there. They always are. That's the important show to them. They are a Japanese company. The Tokyo Game Show is the Japanese show. Maybe they'll announce something there, but I'm just not holding my breath. I don't think they're going to be doing it. And they don't need to. They could, and they could make a much stronger system, but they don't need to. And that's the real thing. They'll make a new Switch too. I mean, even if they want to like update the hardware like that and keep the Switch going, they'll do it when they feel it's necessary to do it.
Yeah.
Not when it's like, oh, we can do it. It's like, no, but we're still making money off the Switch. And the games play fine. People are liking it. Why would we, like, basically upend the whole system on everybody who has it and make a stronger one while it's still going strong?
Yeah, I don't see what, you know, the DS family seemed like it went on forever and ever. And I know there was a difference between the DS, CSI, and the 3DS in terms of...
Yes, they do count that once you add the 3 in front of it, it's a different family.
Yeah, but, yeah, I mean, you know, it's totally backwards compatible. And so I just see them going that same route where they just come out with another, basically fully compatible with all the existing stuff, but just a little bit more powerful.
See, I hate it when people say, and you're the one who says it the most, but people say it all the time. It's like they're basically the same console because they're fully backwards compatible. It's like, okay, well, then the DS is basically a Game Boy Advance because it was backwards compatible to the Game Boy Advance.
But the cartridges look exactly the same.
They don't. There's actually a difference in the cartridges. And there's
Except
also a difference in operating system and how a lot of things work with the 3DS. That one, you wouldn't be forward compatible, obviously, but two, like even resolution and all kinds of like operations within it are different from the 3DS to the DS.
Yeah. All right, fine.
Yeah.
Fine. Be that way.
Yeah. That's why the Game Boy Advance is also considered a different system than the Game Boy, despite the fact that it can play Game Boy games.
Yeah, but they're different.
They are different. So is the 3DS and the DS.
All right, fine. Jeez.
Yeah.
It was harder to tell though because the DS went into the DSi, which was exactly the same except
yes, that was part of the same family. It was almost like the prototype 3DS, but they just weren't ready for it yet. So it's like, okay, we're just gonna make a better DS.
Yeah. But then I don't know. It just. You're right. Now I'm thinking about it, the operating system was completely different because I mean, the whole point of the DSi was that you could download games.
Yeah, that was like their prototype for it. It was the first one that had a shop for that.
Yeah.
You could also store games on the SD card because they didn't think people were going to be pirating. They had more faith in people. It was for homebrew. The DSi had a lot of homebrew stuff on it. Because remember, even the Wii at the time, which is when the DSi came out, was set up for homebrew. There's a homebrew channel. People can make their own games and put it onto the Wii shop for free. You just get things through the homebrew channel. But what happens when you let people homebrew stuff on your system? They just start pirating games.
Yeah.
But like for the operating system of the DS, which is why you could argue that the DSi was its own thing because it actually had a more complex operating system. But it was like this weird middling prototype phase. The operating system for the DS only handled 4 things. And it was play a DS game. Well, it had a clock in it too. You had that too. It had
from a
cartridge
cartridge
operation, but play a DS game from a cartridge, play a Game Boy Advance game from a cartridge, PictoChat, or download play. So you could technically download games temporary, but it was just a temporary cache, and you were doing so off of somebody else's game to be able to play multiplayer with them. That's all the extent. And download play didn't go away. Like even the 3DS still had download play as an option.
Yeah. I don't even remember. I had a DSi. I don't remember what it looked like to play, like to download games to it and play. Was that a separate menu?
Yes.
I don't remember what that looked like.
Yeah. And the DSi had a web browser, which was the same web browser we would see later in the 3DS. To use the web on the DS, you actually had to buy an internet browser cartridge. They came with 2 cartridges, one that told your system how to run the internet, and the other was a Game Boy Advance cartridge you put in the bottom that was actually just like memory to store your temporary data while browsing the internet.
Wow. I guess I never did that.
Yeah, I have.
That's interesting. Yeah, I never had that. But I remember I was like, I just remember being ridiculously excited about logging into the eShop for the first time on my DSi. I was like, yes, I can download games. This is amazing.
Yeah, I think that's also why a lot of people consider the DSi just a proto 3DS, because the DSi didn't even have a Game Boy Advance cartridge in the bottom. It actually just used that space for the memory that it needed. It had extra RAM and memory in that area.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you couldn't play advanced games on that?
No, it didn't even have a slot on the DSi.
But wait, didn't you say that?
Okay,
so what was there was. But you said the web browser DSi.
I was talking about the web browser for the DS. You had to get 2 cartridges.
Oh, okay.
The DSi had a web browser built in.
Okay, that's what I was like.
This is what makes it confusing for people, because some people don't even know that the DSi existed. believe it or not. So for a lot of people who didn't know that existed, the difference between the DS and the 3DS is a lot more clear. Right? It's a lot clearer. But for people who do, it confuses them because the DSi was entirely a DS game. It could only play DS games and homebrew games. But in many ways, it was just built as a prototype for the 3DS because they weren't sure they were ready for it yet.
Yeah, it was a DS with internet features. They just added some features to it. That's it. Could connect to an eShop, connect to a web browser without anything else. Yeah. That's why I think of it, it just seems so continuous to me.
Yeah.
Because I got a DS, and then I got a DSi, and then I got a 3DS. And they all had the same form factor. They all, since I was only going forward, they all played the same games.
Yeah.
I knew
you got to think about it going
DS
backwards, though, right?
Yeah, the DS, I understood, couldn't play 3DS games. But still, it, just in my mind.
It's like if you were just playing the Game Boy and then you were upgrading to the Game Boy Advance, just going forward, it's like, well, the Game Boy Advance can still play all the same games.
Yeah, but the form factor was completely different, so it just didn't even.
That's because
the
all
DS
the DS
to the 3DS.
The DS is just two Game Boy Advances stacked on top of each other. But then because you don't need all the hardware in both screens, you make one thinner so it can fold down. Which we get this idea from the Game Boy Advance SP, which was the first folding Game Boy Advance. So it takes that aspect, but then it takes the width of the normal Game Boy Advance so you can keep the screen in between. And then you realize it's like, this is just the upgrade from the SP to adding a second screen. So, I mean, if you want to look at it from that perspective, the Game Boy all the way through to the end of the 3DS is one continuous system.
Well, I guess, but I mean,
yeah.
Do you consider a Game Boy and a Game Boy Color the same?
No.
Because, I mean...
Because you couldn't play Game Boy Color games. Like, the ones that had the bubble, the outward bubble, you couldn't play them on the Game Boy.
Yeah, I think of them as basically the same.
Yeah. There were Game Boy Color exclusive games that because they weren't just like... So, one of the things with the Game Boy Color that makes a difference is a lot of games already had color coded in them because of the Super Game Boy on the SNES. But then they had games that used multi-paletting to make it like more like a NES game that already had all these different colors, instead of like, okay, well, it's got the color coded in it, but it's all just like one hue that's replacing the shades of gray. But then you have things like which one was it? I'm trying to remember. There was one of these Donkey Kong Country remakes or whatever, because they had the Donkey Kong Land games, but then they actually did like a Donkey Kong Country remake that used all the palettes for the Game Boy Color. And that game was a black cartridge that was slightly transparent. So it was like translucent, and the bubble came out instead of going in on it. And that was a Game Boy Color only game. It could not run on a Game Boy.
Yeah. No, I know.
Yeah.
I know. Whatever.
Yeah,
I'm talking technical. I'm talking, I don't know, psychological.
Well, I'm just giving you a counter argument, right? Because from that perspective, I could make the argument that everything from the first Game Boy all the way through to the DS was just one family of systems. If you want to say it was always backwards compatible to the last generation.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
I guess the way I'm looking at it is, did it have the same, did the cartridge go in the same place?
That's a weird way of looking at it.
The 3D, or the Color, Game Boy Color, the cartridge went in the same place as in the Game Boy. But the Advance, it went in a different place. It was shaped differently.
Well, no, the Advance, it was shaped differently, but it still went in the same place. The SP had a bottom dock. The original Advance had a top dock.
Yeah. Or what were the cartridges almost identical? I don't know. Forget it. I understand. I understand what you're saying, and you are right, Mel. Understand. You are correct. You are technically correct. The best kind of correct.
As I know.
That's right.
Yeah. But talking about the story at hand, which we are talking
Yes.
about upgrading consoles. This is a tangent, but barely. It is within the same subject matter.
Yes.
To quote Bowser directly, he says, "We are always looking at technology and how technology can enhance gameplay experiences. It's not technology for technology's sake. It's how specifically can technology enhance a gameplay experience, and then where do you apply that technology? Do you want to apply it on current existing hardware or platforms, or do you want to wait for the next platform? And then what's the right gameplay experience for that?" There's a host of factors that goes into it, and it's something we're always looking at. Which, basically, it's what I'm saying. So they're not going to do it until they feel it's necessary to do it, right? They're not just going to make a Switch Pro for the sake of making a Switch Pro. They're only going to do it if they feel like, A, the third party and competition that we're doing are outpacing our hardware's ability to run them anymore, even if they do try to scale it back. Which we know is not currently the case, because even people who are making PS4 or PS5 and Xbox Series games are still making them for the Xbox One and PS4 at the same time. Also, like, does it actually change the way people play the games? Which currently it does not, so that's not a requirement for upgrading. While, you know, there are stark differences between the Wii U and the Switch. So obviously, it was time to upgrade their technology in many different ways. So, I don't expect to see a Switch Pro. I'm not saying it won't happen. It's just, we're probably going to wait to the point that they're not making games that work on PS4 and Xbox One anymore. Once that happens, and you're still trying to get the same third-party games, maybe they'll be forced to make something like a PS Pro. Or when they find a new interesting way that the technology can apply to the games, then they'll probably just make the successor to the Switch. I'm thinking that the Switch is probably going to have a good decade-long life cycle.
They've always had refreshes. I mean, almost always.
No, it depends, right? If you're looking at the handhelds, we're more likely to get refreshes, right? If we're looking at the consoles, this will actually have been the first console that they make a more powerful version of. Nintendo hasn't done that yet. They just go to the next generation. There is no more powerful GameCube. There is no more powerful Wii. There is no more powerful Wii U. There was different memory size Wii U, but they were all the same power. They haven't done that yet. This would be a first. But this is also the first console that is both home and handheld. So, because they've done it with their handhelds, I'm not putting it past them, right? We're in strange, uncharted territory here.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, the new 3DS was kind of an odd thing.
It was.
To basically come out with something that was identical. It, like, literally the same thing except more powerful.
Yes. Because the DSi was a little bit more powerful, but that didn't affect gameplay at all or what games you could put on it.
Yeah.
It was just it needed more power to handle the operating system that let you do all the digital stuff that it needed. The operating system on the DS is very weak. Really, it is. There's barely anything there. It's just kind of, other than keeping system time and stuff, which is great because that means cartridges no longer needed batteries of their own to keep track of system time and all that.
And I found it remarkable how tiny NDS files are. NDS video game ROMs. Like, oh my god, this is tiny. Compared to 3DS ROMs are huge.
Yep.
Like, it's like amazing the difference.
There's a really big difference between the DS and the 3DS when you actually start looking into it. It doesn't feel that different, but when you actually get technical about it and you start looking at everything, there's actually a bigger difference between the 3DS and the DS than there was between the Game Boy Advance and the Game Boy.
Yeah, amazingly. Like, yeah. And the games, when you look at them side by side, you can tell. I mean, they're a generation above when you look at, really 3DS games. Just the the graphics quality and everything.
Yeah. But I mean, the way that Bowser is speaking about it, and you're saying Bowser, for people who don't follow, the current president of Nintendo of America is Doug Bowser. That is his name. We're not talking about the fictional character that happens to share the same name. Some people still aren't aware of that, and it just sounds so confusing when you tell them that Bowser is calling the shots at Nintendo, at least here in America.
Yeah. Yeah, that was amazing. When Reggie Fils-Aimé stepped down, it was like, Doug Bowser. Really?
No, he finally won. He took over the Mushroom Kingdom.
Yeah, that's right.
And no one's here to stop them. Unless, the next president just happens to have the name Mario in there somewhere. Even if it's just his middle name.
Yeah.
But,
that would be cool.
And I don't think that influenced their decision at all, because I've looked at his record in the company. He's been dealing with, like, public relations and marketing and sales for a long time. And he seems just, like, really good at his job. And it's been a while since they've promoted from the inside, right? Because Reggie was taken from the outside. He was at, like, what pizza place was it? Was it Papa John's? He wasn't like a president, but he was like a CEO marketing director type guy at one of these pizza joints. Pizza Hut, I can't remember. But he was hired from the outside. Bowser was actually hired from the inside. So it was kind of cool. And it's not bad to do either way. It just
but
depends.
Of course, that's the president of Nintendo of America. That's his whole job. It's like marketing.
Pretty much, yeah.
He doesn't call shots.
Yeah, there's some weird things about what the president does, right? But it is mostly marketing, like 95% marketing. There are some times where the president, when it comes down to like disambiguation between things, have had to call the shot. But that's like everything that's not marketing is like 5% of the job.
Yeah. By the way, Reggie Fils-Aimé did work as senior director of national marketing at Pizza Hut.
Pizza Hut. Okay, I couldn't remember which one. That was my second guess. I could not remember.
And then later he worked at Panda Management Company, which is a Chinese food.
Oh yeah.
Like Panda Express.
I love Panda Express.
And he worked at VH1 Network.
Yeah. No, he has a really good resume. That's why they hired him in. They hired him in during a time, and this actually goes back to E3 because we were talking about this a while, where they needed a good marketeer to come in and bolster things, because PlayStation was killing it. Like, people don't remember how bad PlayStation was killing it way back in the day. Like, they were doing numbers on people. PlayStation basically killed Sega. Sega wasn't doing that bad, but PlayStation killed them. Like, not even in the back, right to their front, just stabbed them in the stomach and looked them in the eye while they slowly bled out. And there was nothing they could do about it, right?
Yeah.
And it was that whole where they just walked up on stage and they're like, $2.99, and then walked off. And that's when E3 started becoming like this this slap fest, this actual competitive, like, we're trying to win against each other.
Sony
came out.
That's what Sony did?
It was way back in the day, and this is actually one of the things that killed the Dreamcast. They just came up on stage, and the marketing director went to the microphone and went, $2.99, and then he just walked away from the podium. Because at the time, that was beating everybody else's price for the current generation of console. Right? And that's what killed the Dreamcast. They're dead in the water right there. And Nintendo was even sweating it, and that's why they pulled in Reggie. And Reggie came on and he was like, I'm Reggie Fils-Aimé, and I'm here to kick ass. Like, he literally said that in E3, and he had this whole marketing thing, and he's like, one of our competitors is a company that is trying to take over every single device that you have in your home. They want to make sure that you're running it on their product, and that was Sony at the time, because Sony DVD player, Sony camcorder, Sony TV, Sony everything, and they're charging you an arm and a leg for it. We're not those guys. Another one of our competitors doesn't really care what you do as long as you're doing it on their operating system. Obviously talking about Microsoft at the time. we're not those guys either. Like, he just came out and he just started slinging mud on the competition.
Yeah.
And this is why everybody loved Reggie, like, straight from the start. He was a man with a personality who came up. He did not care. So many memeable quotes from him, and they're not like you're making fun of him. You're laughing with him, like when they're doing the Wii Fit thing. And they're like, okay, we need you to stand on the balance board so we can get your way. And he's like, my body is ready. And like that is such, people have been memeing that forever, even like changing it, like, my body is Reggie. And they'll just have like his face just molded in his body shape multiple times. This is why people used to love E3, because of that stuff. And then it became boring as fuck.
I say to this statement, yeah, my body is Reggie is a thing to this day.
Everybody loves it, yeah.
Yeah, so he came in, the GameCube was out in 2001, and it was failing, and he came in 2003. And really, I mean, obviously it wasn't just him with the Wii when the Wii came out, but yeah, he became the public face of Nintendo, and everybody loved him.
Like, internationally, people loved him, even though he was really only the president of, I want to say, yeah, they cater more south than Mexico too, like Central America and up, but they don't really go too far. I don't know where their limits are, how far down they cater to like Guatemala and stuff. Because at a certain point, there's the northern office in South America that just starts covering everything. But at least from like Mexico all the way up through Canada, that's what Nintendo of America covers.
Right.
But everybody, even like Europe, Japan, everybody loves Reggie.
So my question is, what's with all these rumors about Nintendo buying, all these OLED screens and stuff?
I don't know.
It's like, what's that all about?
They might have something else in store.
I don't know. It seems like it would make sense to come out with. I mean, like I've said it again and again. The latest version of the NVIDIA Tegra chip that's currently in the Switch, the latest version is outstanding.
Maybe
it's just like they could run anything.
We're thinking just purely two-dimensional. We need to start thinking three-dimensional.
Yeah.
Back when the Switch first came out, before they even ended the 3DS line, they said that the Switch was not replacing their handheld line. They didn't say they were ending their handheld line either. Maybe they're buying all these OLED screens because they've got a new surprise handheld that they're working on, just waiting in the background, that's going to be a companion to the Switch.
From what I've heard, the screens that they're manufacturing or purchasing or whatever are bigger.
Switch, I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it's for a Switch Pro, though.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, like they could run the Final Fantasy VII remake on the newest Tegra chip.
Speaking of the Final Fantasy VII remake,
yes,
there are rumors. They're actually more than rumors.
Oh, I saw that.
They're more like inside reports, but it's there's basically rumor going around that the remake could be coming to PC. Now, it will be coming through the Epic Game Store, because this is where the report came from. It was a Game Store listing.
Yep.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because a lot of things that end up coming to the Epic Game Store, like 6 months to a year later, end up coming to like other stores on PC as well. I'm not a fan of Epic. I won't be buying it through Epic. I'm not even that interested in this game. But if like 6 months to a year after it comes out on Epic, it comes out on Steam, and then like a year after that, during like a winter sale or something, it's on sale for a good price, then maybe I'll pick it up and play it. But this is the only feasible chain of events that will happen that actually gets me to play the Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Well, I scandalously recently installed the Epic Game Store on my PC.
Yeah, because you needed it for
only to try the
Engine.
Unreal Engine, yeah. I was like, damn it, install the damn game. The damn store that I promised I would never install.
It's so weird that you need it too, though, because you used to be able to just get the UDK for like Unreal 4 directly off their site. It was a standalone program. You didn't need a launcher or anything like that.
Not anymore. Unreal Engine 5, you have to install it through the launcher. That's how they get you. But yeah, I'm not going to buy any games from it. So yeah, I agree. But I found that interesting that there's a listing. They basically put it into their database, in the Epic Game Store database. I'd be shocked if they wouldn't. If it would only come out for PlayStation, forever. Be shocked. So
well, yeah, I'm just wondering how long it would take, right? Because I wasn't expecting it to hit anywhere else while they were still making the series.
Sure.
Yeah.
I understand that.
And because it's PlayStation, I mean, look how long Final Fantasy VII was locked to PlayStation back in the day. Like,
yeah.
It didn't even hit Nintendo till the Switch. Like, it was never on a Nintendo system until this current one.
Yeah. It came on 3 CDs, didn't it?
Yes, 3 different discs. The last disc, though, was mostly just the last dungeon in Sephiroth. So it was like 2 and some change.
Joshua says he didn't know the "My Body Is Ready" came from Reggie Fils-Aimé.
Yeah, he was just up there on stage. They needed to weigh in on the Wii Fit balance board because the Wii Fit was being announced, and he just goes, "My body is ready." He always knew.
It's funny when you learn
all times.
It's funny when you learn like, oh, that's what that came from originally. Yeah, it's like, yep, I remember that.
It's such a great way of speaking too. Like, he could give a presentation and keep your interest the way he spoke.
Yeah. He's a funny guy.
They actually I heard they had to turn the, well, it wasn't the gain, but like the actual volume on his mic down. So he always had like one of those little white, stringy Q-tip looking earpieces on. Because the guy, he just like, he's used to being on stage and projecting to people that he was just too loud for the microphone.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have another story that's near and dear to my heart.
Oh, yeah? What you got? Castlevania
Metroid Dread.
Oh, Metroid Dread. More stuff on Metroid Dread. Okay.
Metroid Dread tops Amazon's bestsellers chart. Woo! #1 on the Amazon US video game bestsellers chart.
Are people already pre-ordering that game?
Yes, they are.
I don't pre-order games.
Which is awesome. I understand. I'm not going to pre-order it, at least not as it is right now, because I'm going to get the collector's edition. Definitely. If that comes out, I'm going to pre-order it. But it's not available right now. But that's great news, because Metroid has notoriously not sold well.
Oh, yeah, no. It's not a very good seller for Nintendo, like, at all.
Yeah. And and Metroid fans like myself are like, if this doesn't sell well, they're not going to make another one for like 19 years again. And it's like, God damn, people buy it so that we get more.
Yeah, that's the problem too, right? It's like, I understand not putting it on the forefront when they don't sell that well, especially because like Prime sells better than the 2D ones do. But Prime also takes a lot longer to make than the 2D ones too. So just because it sells better, proportionately, you could probably argue the 2D ones sell better based on the amount of effort that goes into it and the return you get on that effort, the return of investment.
Right.
But they do worse than a lot of games. Historically, they actually did slightly better than Fire Emblem did up until Awakening. Fire Emblem actually didn't do that good at all until Awakening. But they barely did better than like F-Zero, which is another game that we've just kind of seen dead in the water. We haven't seen an F-Zero in forever. It's just kind of one of those historically known Nintendo games that people assume is more popular than it is. But then you got to think to yourself, if you're one of those people that assume it's popular but don't play it, ask yourself, if I don't play it, why should I assume it's popular?
Yeah. Well, I'm actually amazed. I was looking up. Samus Returns came out in 2017, and so if you think about it, it's the same team that did Samus Returns. Presumably, they waited a little bit after that to see how the sales went and everything before they started. So this game only took 3 years at most to make.
Yeah.
Maybe 2.5. So you're right. It didn't take nearly as long. I mean, God, Metroid Prime 4, about when all's said and done, will have taken like what, 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, but you probably dock 2 years off of that.
Yeah.
Not off of investment, but off of the actual time it took to make it, because Nintendo, I understand they have Retro Studios is doing a lot of different things today. They were also the ones that have been working on the Donkey Kong Country Returns series. But when's the last time you saw Donkey Kong Country Returns that wasn't just a port from the last generation, right? They should have just had Retro start on it from the beginning. Prime is their series. They were always the ones that made Prime. They didn't have them starting on Prime 4. There was a different team. And then things didn't work out well, and now Retro's taking over. They should have just been working on it from the beginning. Like, don't start the game until the team that makes the game is ready to do it, because you have them doing something else.
Yeah. But it still will have ended up taking a long time.
Yes.
Compared to Dread, which apparently took very little time in the course of, things, especially considering part of that time. I don't know how, the pandemic affected game development, but I'm sure it affected it in some. Yeah.
Not as much. So I mean,
one of those years. Oh, that's true. But one of those years was 2020. So.
Yeah, that's why I was actually going to round it down and say it was probably like the average 2-year dev cycle for a game.
For Dread?
Yeah.
Or for Prime?
No, for Dread, not for Prime.
Yeah.
Dread, I'm going to say that as far as time investment, it's probably the average 2-year dev cycle. But there's a lot of things that happen, and obviously time investment isn't everything that goes in cost investment, so it's probably still going to be closer to a 3-year cycle for how much it cost Nintendo to make it. But the problem is in Japan, we've been over this before, they weren't as... their infrastructure wasn't set up to handle at-home work like ours was. Their internet's not as good widely everywhere. You can't get like a business line directly to somebody's house or apartment or anything like that. You have to use just whatever the commercial line is, and a lot of them aren't that good. Not even everything has internet. Like, there are still places in cities that are having internet lines going to buildings because that building was not previously set up to internet. And we're in the freaking 2020s, and how long has internet been around? People don't understand that Japan and internet it's not like it is over here, So the pandemic hurt video game development in Japan a lot more than it did, say, in North America and Europe.
Well. But anyway, so I'm happy that Dread is currently apparently number one, and this is all video games, not just Switch.
Yeah.
And it's on Amazon. It's amazing.
Yeah. I hope it is the thing that actually breathes life into the series.
Yeah.
And I think that might be another thing to it as well, like with Fire Emblem Awakening. I always like to say, it's like, haha, Fire Emblem wasn't popular until they added waifus into it. Like, the actual ability to do the support thing and have people date each other and stuff like that when they turned it into a dating sim. But that might not actually be it. There's nothing, and I've been considering this for a while, I just don't ever talk about it. And there's this phenomenon of people who weren't necessarily into games when they were younger, right? Like, I was already at the point that you weren't really being picked on for playing games. I know in the past, there were people that were bullied in school for playing video games. And that's because by the time I was hitting middle school, PlayStation was already out. And in elementary school, nobody's going to pick on you for playing video games. But not a lot of people actually played video games in elementary school. In fact, the friends that I had that I made tend to be the people that played video games. Like we heard that they were the person talking about video games in class, so you kind of just naturally flock to them. It was not popular. Even when I had like friends that came over from church when I was younger, before you started making friends in school and stuff, they just wanted to run outside and play. And I had no problem playing with them, but they weren't the type of people that ever wanted to play video games. They're like, what is this thing? So video games really weren't that popular for quite a while after the crash, because they were marketed as kids' toys, but then not everybody was buying them, So for me, I underestimated how few people were playing the same games that I was playing for a long time. But video games are the top form of entertainment in the world right now. They outclass every other industry in terms of money that comes in, and also just in terms of like people like actually using them, it's outclassing as well. And there's a lot of people that heard of games when they were younger, even when they weren't playing them, right? They're familiar with this stuff culturally, that some of these games it's their first chance of actually diving into the series. They didn't have the opportunity when they were younger, right? So a lot of people who maybe heard of Fire Emblem because they played Smash Brothers Melee, and they saw Marth and Roy in there, right? And they played it at a friend's house or whatever. Now they're diving into video games themselves. They see Awakening. All these people who never played a Fire Emblem game before but were familiar with them suddenly have a 3DS because a 3DS is super popular. They're playing Awakening, right? I think we might be getting this with Metroid 2. Not a lot of people owned the systems that Metroid was on back in the day, right? Video games just did not sell as well as they do now. But everybody knows of Metroid, right? This is just a cultural staple. People know Samus and they know about Metroid. That they're like, hey, this is a series I've always wanted to get into. And I actually have the Switch. A lot of people own Switches to get into it now. I'm going to hop onto it. I'm going to see what this is all about. I think this is actually more the phenomenon. And I haven't been giving as much credit to Fire Emblem as I probably should have. But to be honest, Fire Emblem's an overrated series and deserves to be shat on. But I think we're seeing this with a lot of series. Like, even the last Pikmin game sold way better than the previous Pikmin game. Why? Well, because they re-put it on the Switch, and now everybody can actually play the game. People didn't own the consoles before.
It sold horribly on the Wii U.
Yeah.
Because nobody owned a Wii.
And everybody owned a Wii, but most people didn't know what Pikmin was. Most people owned the Wii for, like, Just Dance, which was still selling on the Wii up until, like, this year is the first one that isn't also on the Wii.
But Pikmin 3 wasn't available on the Wii.
No, I'm saying, because I was comparing the sales of Pikmin 3, combining the Wii U and the Switch together to the sales of the original Pikmin. Even though everybody owned a Wii, a lot of people didn't know what Pikmin was, right?
Right.
Because a lot of people owned a Wii for Wii Sports and for a bunch of just different random motion control games. Pikmin 2 was on the Wii, I think? Because Pikmin 1 was on the GameCube.
I think so. Yeah. And I didn't know
not a lot
what
of people
Pikmin
owned
was
a GameCube, so that's why they had no idea what Pikmin was.
Yeah, I didn't know what Pikmin was until I got Pikmin 3 on the Wii U, and I was blown away. I was like, "Oh my god, this game is amazing! It just looks amazing, just like so realistic looking."
Yeah, but now people know about Pikmin. And I think Smash Brothers has a lot to do with this, because Smash Brothers has for a while been the system seller for Nintendo, which is probably why the Wii U didn't do that well, because while it's a popular game, that's only one of many niches in Nintendo, right? So you pretty much only got the Smash Brothers players on the Wii U. Mario Kart, which is also sometimes a system seller, just wasn't enough to get people on, right? But because of Smash Brothers and Olimar being on there, people know what Pikmin is now. So a lot of people, when they did own a Switch, ended up getting Pikmin 3. Because of Smash Brothers, everybody knows who Samus is. Everybody knows these Fire Emblem characters. I think Smash Brothers actually has been a really good job of selling these other series to people. It's just been taking a really long time until these games were on a system that everybody actually owned.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny we had this idea of a system seller, but the Switch is the opposite. It's a system that's a game seller.
Yeah.
Like all these games that were floundering like on the Wii U have just sold through the roof once they bring them over to the Switch.
Yeah.
It's been amazing. But yeah, I like to update myself every once in a while on the state of the game industry, especially compared to the comic book industry, especially in the United States.
Comic book
horrifically
you can
terrible.
Sneeze at that.
Yeah, but right now in 2021, I guess this is an estimate. The game market, global revenue for the video game market, $178 billion in revenue.
Nice.
And heading towards 268 estimated by 2025. Whereas last time I checked, the United States comic book industry was below 1 billion.
Oh no, it's super low. Because we were comparing, it's like board games make like 7 times what comic books do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
178, I believe.
Or
I remember
tabletop games are making way more than comics. And, that's a better industry to be in. Card games, much better industry to be in than comics. Comics actually probably one of the worst industries to be in, which is why I make web comics. I do them because I want to tell a story, not because I plan on making money off this thing. Because I mean, you can make a decent living, but it's not the industry to be in if you're actually looking at growth. Unless you want to start multimedia with comics. It's a good way to get a root in, right? Which is, you see a lot of people doing that.
Or if you're making manga.
Yeah.
Manga's growing.
Yeah, manga actually still doesn't do as good as certain other American industries. It's just doing way better than the American comic industry.
Yeah.
It's better to be in than the American comic industry, though. Like, manga's doing better than tabletop. I mean, if you want to look at how good it is, and tabletop's already doing like 7 times more better than comics are. And that's the entire industry together, right? Like, certain single mangas sell better than like the entire American comic book industry.
Yeah.
What is it? I think Demon Slayer is selling better as just a single manga than the whole American comic book industry.
Yeah, all combined.
Yeah. It's not video games. It's not movies. It's not even animation. But it's definitely way up there compared to other things you could be in.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think Nintendo's heading in the right direction. And I mean, I guess you're right. Why should they be in any hurry to update the Switch?
Well, that could also be the other reason why they have all these OLED screens, right? Not even for a Switch Pro. But Nintendo, they start working on the next console. Not even necessarily an update, but a next console the second the last one launches, right? That's just how they do things. When the Switch came out, they were already designing what was going to replace the Switch, even if it takes years to figure out what they're doing. These OLED screens may not be for a Switch Pro. They might just be for the Switch's successor, like whatever comes after it.
Mm-hmm. Which may not come out for another 5-6 years.
Yeah, who knows? But they would be grabbing all this stuff to start making mock models and stuff to send... what would be the equivalent of a dev kit? I mean, you can make everything on computer now, but you still want to have a system you can run it on to see if it's working properly after you make it, to all of their subsidiaries, because they'll need them, so their subsidiaries can have test kits. Be like, okay, here's your test model that you can run the game on now. Make sure it runs flawlessly before you send us the finalized game. And they'll start doing that for years before the system actually comes out.
I just can't believe that they're not. I mean, they've got to announce something in the next year. I just can't believe that all the rumors would be just completely wrong.
That's what the next thing should be, right? Because the Switch didn't completely replace the 3DS, they should do a dual system, right? where they need to get big and little OLED screens. So they need a system that is slightly bigger than the Switch, which is your home system that you can still take with you. But then they need something the size of a smartphone that is the companion system that you can have, right? Like, this is your actual handheld.
Yeah.
It plays the games at a slightly lower quality, but you can barely notice the difference. And once it hooks up to a network, it just shares your files between them, kind of like how the Switch does with the cloud. That's what Nintendo needs to be working on. A console and handheld version of their next iteration. I want a pocket Switch. Who doesn't want a pocket Switch, right? Like, the big one's good. I love gaming on it. But I have to, like, bring it around in a case or a backpack or something like that. I wouldn't mind having something like the 3DS. No, that doesn't fit in my pockets.
Yeah.
I want something I could take around in my pocket again.
Even the 3DS is a bit large for a pocket.
Yeah. Like, it fits. But I'm also not fitting, like, anything else in there. Right? Like, it's its own pocket. I can't put, like, keys or a wallet or even some change in there. The 3DS is just taking up the whole thing.
And forget it if you're a girl. Have you seen pockets in girls' pants?
Yeah.
They're pathetic.
I think the Game Boy Micro was actually specifically made for girls. I'm trying to get more women to buy it.
Actually fit in their pocket.
Their pocket, or it fits in their purse without taking up much more room than anything else that's already in there or whatever. It's like this tiny Game Boy, you could play Tetris on it. We have Tetris.
That's right. I'm going to be carrying that game and that Zelda Game & Watch everywhere I go.
Yeah. But Nintendo, if you're listening, I don't know if you've already had this idea, but this needs to be your next product. It's like the Switch. Call it something different. Don't give us a Wii U problem again. But it's like the Switch. You have your main version of the system, but then you also have like a phone-sized companion system. Its own thing. You can sell it separately. You don't have to bundle it to lose money on it. Yeah, with the controls. Almost like your Switch Lite. You just need to go smaller, right? You can't make something the same size. You need a companion system that's smaller, and it's all the same user, and everything just seamlessly transfers from it. That's all. That's all you need. You will kill the next generation if that's what you do. It'll just be like the better version of the Switch.
Yeah. Truly mobile.
Yeah. Like, I will carry that thing with me everywhere. It will never stay home.
Yeah. I mean, I already carry this, but it's a pain in the ass because you do have to have like a case and everything.
Yeah. Or, I have no problem carrying it places if it's wintertime, but that's because I have a weird jacket that most people don't have. On the inside of my jacket, there's like this big net compartment here that's like this wide. You could actually probably shove like a 2-liter of soda in there and then zip it up. So I just put my Switch in there and I'm good.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
it's time.
We're out of time.
I just noticed we were such a heated conversation. I didn't even notice.
Yeah, I was kind of waiting. I was like, is he going to end it sometime soon?
Yeah. So thank you for watching, everyone. If you enjoy the show, please share it with somebody else who enjoys it. I did have other things to talk about. I promise we won't only ever be talking about Nintendo stuff. There are other things that interest me. There's just a lot of Nintendo stuff to talk about this week because, well, they kind of won E3. Sorry, I did talk about a lot of Microsoft on their day before Nintendo got to go. I did like Microsoft's conference. But we'll talk about other things in the future, so share it with somebody else who might have liked the show. And if you really enjoy it, please consider giving a donation to streamlabs.com/vomitorium live. Your contributions are what save me money on hosting this show. And we'll see you next time.
Have a good weekend.